Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's pen with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 770 of the podcast, and it is Wednesday the 11th of September 2024 as I record this. In today's show, I'm doing a solo in-between-isode on my lessons learned from 13 years as an author-entrepreneur. So I started writing seriously for publication in 2007 and started the Creative Penn website in December 2008 and the podcast in March 2009, but I actually left my job as an IT consultant in 2011 to make a living as a full-time author entrepreneur. And thankfully, I have never gone back. So I've done these lessons learned episodes every year since, and you can read or listen to previous updates at thecreativepenn.com/timeline. So here's a brief intro in case you're new here, as I would normally do for my guests. Joanna Penn writes non-fiction for authors and is an award-winning New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of thrillers, dark fantasy, horror, crime and memoir as J.F. Penn. She's also an award-winning podcaster, creative entrepreneur and international professional speaker. So that is me. Now, my challenges change and grow along with the business over the years, and you will likely be at a different stage to me, but I hope you find my lessons learned useful along your own author journey. Today's show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to everyone who's been supporting for months and years, and if you join the community you get access to all my backlist videos and audio covering topics on creativity and AI, mindset and all the aspects of the business of being an author, and my patron-only Q&A solo podcast episode. So if you enjoy this solo show, you can get lots more at the Patreon. It is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of buying me a black coffee a month or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. And you get access to everything, all the content and Q&As. So if you get value from the show and you want more, come on over and join us at patreon.com, patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Right, let's get into it. Lessons learned from 13 years as an author entrepreneur. 1. It takes time to pivot your author brand and your mindset, but my dark horse is finally running. Back in December 2023, over 8 months ago now, I announced I would be making a slow pivot to focus more on my J.F. Penn books. You can listen to that in episode 728. Writing The Shadow, Turn Your Inner Darkness into Words was decades in the making, and if you don't know, that was my last book on writing craft, and it really did feel like my last word on the craft of writing, at least for now. I want to do more with that book, as this strange time in history means examining our darker sides is more important than ever, but for now I need to express my own shadow into my books. I have so many stories and ideas and other types of projects that are waiting to emerge from the J.F. Penn brand. I have a folder in my books drive with 22 different projects. Some are just initial ideas, others with research. These are standalones and short stories and other books in series, and there are non-fiction books there too. I have another folder in my Things app with nearly 1,000 notes and links and quotes and things to investigate and snippets and thoughts and things that might become a story or a book. All of this is enough already to keep me going for years, but as I keep adding, keep inputting, I learn more, I research, I travel, I think, I read, and all of this is just growing all the time. So I really wanted to make that shift, but as much as I wanted to, I really struggled in the first half of the year. I started out by rewriting my author blueprint, which was more work than expected. So after announcing that I wasn't going to do any more books as Joanna Penn, I went and did essentially another one. But I needed to get that done to sort of have everything ready for Joanna Penn and the Creative Penn to just run more on autopilot. But then I started writing Spear of Destiny and I went to Germany and Austria and started to relax a little into it. But it wasn't until July, when I went to the Do lectures in West Wales, that I noticed things were finally changing. In the past, when people asked what I did at events or social things, I would say, I'm Joanna Penn, I'm an author and a podcaster, and my site helps writers, the creative pen. And I always talked about the self-help angle first. I might mention I wrote fiction, but it wasn't the first thing I talked about. Perhaps as I wrote in Writing the Shadow, my fear of judgment stopped me, as people certainly judge fiction writers more harshly, and in a different way, or maybe I just feel it so. But at the Do lectures, I introduced myself as Jo, and I said, I'm an author. I write thrillers and horror, crime and dark fantasy, and some self-help. So I flipped my script, and it finally felt natural and right to do so. And there are people now who have met me in the world who don't even know about this podcast or Joanna Penn, who only know me as Jo J.F. Penn. So yes, it was such a relief, and my dark horse is finally running. If you've read Writing the Shadow, you will know what I mean by this, but I'm going to read the short chapter here as a reminder. Your dark horse is not the same as mine, but the challenge for you is the same, and the one I'm giving to you here. Is your dark horse running, and how can you let it run? So I'll read the chapter here, and this is from Writing the Shadow. Let your dark horse run. Although much has changed over the last 2,000 years, human nature remains the same. Around 370 BC, the Greek philosopher Plato composed the Phaedrus, which includes an allegory of a chariot that has helped me frame the shadow. Perhaps it will help you too. Imagine a Roman chariot drawn by two horses, a white horse and a dark horse. I am the charioteer, and I am in the race of my life. The white horse represents my rational self, the one society sees. My good behaviour, my industry, my hard work, my productivity, my scrubbed clean, well-mannered, good girl self. She helps others. She's a peacemaker. She doesn't like conflict. She says the right things, reads the right books. She needs to be liked. My white horse trots delicately along paved roads, aware of the fences and boundaries, never needing to cross them, remaining within the lines drawn by others. My dark horse is a wild animal, wreathed in smoke and ash and flame. She gallops across wide open spaces, leaps obstacles, smashes through fences, and avoids the paved and cornered world. She runs free and will destroy herself rather than be caged. If both horses run together in the same direction, I can fly along, whooping in delight at the speed and power. But if they become unbalanced, the chariot begins to wobble. When my dark horse stumbles, my white horse drives us hard along the highway, never stopping for rest. But if she dominates for too long, my dark horse rears up and runs out of control, driving us towards the cliff edge. My white horse has often been stronger. I've always worked hard, got good grades, behaved well, earned enough money to support myself, paid my taxes early. But the more I let my white horse dominate, the more my dark one rears up unexpectedly and takes over until she exhausts herself with all the things that nice girls shouldn't do. When I became a writer, these two horses drove me once more. My white horse writes non-fiction, helps others, wants to be useful, and responsibly manages a professional business. I'm grateful to have her. My dark horse writes stories that tap into untamed darkness. I've tried to muzzle her, strap her down, regulate her chaos, but she rears her head, shakes her mane, stamps her hooves, paws the dirt. Let me run. So that is a chapter from Writing the Shadow, and I narrate the whole audiobook, so you can always listen to the audiobook wherever you're listening to this, or it's obviously available in other formats. But it's actually good to read it again. I mean, I read the audiobook about a year ago, and I need to revisit this book as much as anyone else. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And I feel like my dark horse is really starting to run now. And yeah, so my challenge to you is, whatever your dark horse means to you, is it running, and how can you let it run more freely? 2. It takes time to change your creative and business processes. So I have been into AI since 2016, when AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol at the Chinese game of Go. That set of matches included what was considered the first creative move by a machine, and the game subsequently changed and was reinvigorated by the new possibilities. But there was quite a lot of upset as well. Obviously, there are parallels to the current upheaval due to generative AI, which I've talked a lot about on the podcast and also in my Patreon, so I won't rehash all of that here. You can read or listen to an overview of my approach in The AI-Assisted Artisan Author, an episode from last year. But essentially, I will use the AI tools to enhance and amplify my creativity and help me achieve my creative and business goals. So I've been playing around and using really as much as possible. And since using the AI tools, I feel like I can get into creative flow more often. And I am so much happier. It's like I'm a different person. I'm happy and I'm laughing all the time because I'm having so much fun. I am basically having the best time of my creative life. I am turning my imagination into reality in different ways, and I am so excited for the progression of what we can do next. If you have curiosity and you enjoy playing with these things, it's just unlimited. So I got access to ChatGPT as soon as it was released in November 2022, and I've tried loads of things since then. Most of my covers now have elements of Midjourney and DALL-E, and I work with my book cover designer Jane at JD Smith Design to make the finished covers. I think the pinnacle of my cover design at the moment is Blood Vintage, and I made that image on Midjourney. I use ChatGPT and Claude for writing my sales descriptions, doing my marketing plans, writing marketing copy and ad copy, coming up with ideas for images, for book trailers, creating synopses of books, doing movie pitch documents, of which I am now rocking on movie pitches and more. I also use the tools for brainstorming ideas and plot points and enhancing the quality of my work, and also deep character point of view, since Claude in particular is great at writing from the point of view of a character with specific knowledge. For example, I co-wrote a scene where a character in Blood Vintage explained how to test grapes for sugar content before harvesting, using technology that kind of character would know, which was fantastic. I also use a load of other AI-assisted tools like Descript for my podcast editing, ProWriting Aid for editing my documents, Canva for images, and more. So you'd think I was the poster girl for AI-assisted business, right? And I guess I am way ahead of some people. And yet I want to do more. And sometimes I have to catch myself doing something and think, how can I make this better or more fun with an AI tool? There must be something for this, rather than just defaulting to an existing old process. In the last week, as I record this, I've reinvented my book trailer process. So I used Runway to turn images into short video, which I then put together with Canva. And previously, I've only ever sort of used still images, which I've then used effects to make a sort of fake video. But with Runway, so the Blood Vintage book trailer, which I'll link in the show notes, or it's on Instagram or YouTube, is made with Midjourney and then Runway. And I did a video for this for my patrons, so if you're in the Patreon, you'll see how I did it. But boy, it was so much fun. I just loved it. In fact, I now want to make book trailers for every single one of my books. So I'm still experimenting with using the AI-powered marketing tools from Amazon and Meta, and I'm looking forward to when I can just give them a book and tell them to do everything on every platform on my behalf. I think most authors would love to outsource much of marketing, and even those authors who don't want to touch AI for anything creative, which is fair enough, probably will still want to use it for marketing. Now, we have to keep reinventing ourselves, especially when we've been here a while, and I've been here a while. And when I see new authors doing new things, I think I should change, I should adopt new ways. Things change all the time. In fact, just going off script, someone asked me the other day, is X still as bad as it was? And I'm like, X has completely changed, and it is becoming so much more than social media. In fact, it might end up just a completely different app. It's very different now with Grok, and they're adding payments and they're adding just all kinds of things that didn't happen before. And that's the thing. If you leave something behind for, let's say, 6 months, a year, or say you haven't tried ChatGPT or Claude for 6 months, it's completely different now. So we have to keep reinventing ourselves. We have to keep trying new things, new tools, new processes, or we will stagnate. And so does our business. And I absolutely admit to feeling a bit of ennui and stagnation and just that general sense of, is this a grind? And that happened more last year, to be honest. And then it's kind of like, look, if we stagnate, we need to reinvent ourselves, reinvent our genre, reinvent our processes, look at the things that excite us. And it has ever been this way, and it continues to be this way. It's just surprising how long it can take to change an ingrained pattern, even with the best will of the world. So I am really trying to look at every single part of my creativity and every single part of my business process and really just experiment, try new things, and just enjoy myself more, which is actually going quite well. So I guess my challenge to you here is, how long have you been stuck in a particular process? Now, maybe you're enjoying all of your processes for creativity and business, but the question is, how long have you been doing things the same way? How long have you just been doing the same thing for social, or doing the same thing for your email, or doing the same genre or whatever? And do you feel in any way that you're stagnating, or that sense of just being a bit flat? And if you do, then how can you start reinventing each of those processes, breaking them down, trying new things, having more fun? 3. Having a tiny paywall makes all the difference to my happiness and mental health. So as part of the shift outlined above, I started to focus much more on my community at patreon.com/thecreativepen. I shifted to monthly billing, which is, as I've mentioned, the price of buying me a coffee or a couple of coffees a month. And I add something new to every single week, basically. I add something new. Sometimes it's the patron-only Q&A audio, or an interview with an industry professional, or a demo of something I'm doing, like my book trailer process in the last week, or a video from my course archive, or the office hours we did recently live, where I demoed a load of AI stuff. As I learn things and change things, I share the process with my patrons. We're also having a patron-only meetup at Author Nation in Las Vegas in November, and I am currently looking into patron-exclusive merchandise. So I used to share a lot more about AI and futurist topics on the main feed of the Creative Pen podcast. So you may have noticed that in previous years, but I am keeping that much more sporadic now. I mean, yes, every week I have some kind of something in the introduction, but I'm doing fewer and fewer interviews on it. And that's because I am mostly sharing behind the small paywall. And this helps me because most of my community in the Patreon are AI positive or AI curious, or at least some of them have said they like my content enough to keep subscribing, even if they don't use AI at all. So I feel safe enough to share more openly. Now, I used to get so much hate over the AI stuff that at times I considered leaving the internet entirely. Why bother? Like, seriously, why even bother sharing anything or trying to help when the backlash was so nasty, and still is in many cases? Especially after I've spent many, many years, since 2008, I have been here trying to help authors by sharing what I do, mostly for free. Most of what I have done for years is freely available. And then, of course, there's some books and all of those things. But my community feel like my friends, as well as hopefully my fans, and I can be myself and not feel attacked. In fact, I feel supported and encouraged to keep sharing. This subscription model stream of income also helps me financially. It reflects Kevin Kelly's iconic article on 1,000 True Fans, which is about direct relationships with a small number of people rather than aiming for mass market appeal. You can make a living this way, even if the amounts are relatively small per person. So my community at patreon.com/thecreativepen now has 1,180 people. So thank you so much, patrons, for this. And I guess my challenge here is, if you are struggling with being out there in the world in any form, what are some ways that you can change things to make it more comfortable for you? Maybe I know some authors, fiction authors, for example, have a readers group on Facebook or other places. But basically having a smaller group of people who are in your network network, who are in your community, who are more positive about what you do. And it can help you, even if you still get attacked in other ways, it can help you feel just more secure, I guess, and also stick around. And I have actually, I'm not planning on ending the podcast at the moment. I'll just mention that. But I have asked my patrons, would you carry on in the Patreon if there was no podcast? And increasingly that is becoming a yes, because we're doing different things in the Patreon. So yeah, I think that is important. 4. I love making beautiful books, and I love BookVault and Kickstarter for helping me make them and sell them direct. So yes, I love the creative and business possibilities of custom print options with BookVault and Kickstarter. I always wanted to make beautiful books, but it just wasn't cost effective in the past with having to do print runs and pay such a ton of money up front. But Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms enable this, and BookVault enables you to print a tiny volume of special books with things like sprayed edges and foil and ribbons and all of that. So I am so grateful for these platforms, as they've unlocked a new level of creativity for me. And yeah, basically I just want to redo my entire backlist with these special editions, which is kind of silly. So I'm really trying to think about how I might be able to do that. Now, I've always been a very visual writer and a visual person. One of my, I guess it's a hobby, but I love taking photos. I take photos all the time, and I love writing a deep sense of place in my books. Place means an awful lot to me. So I'm also appreciating Midjourney, as I'm enjoying using it to make more images and to turn the ideas in my head into reality in a way I couldn't do before, because I didn't have the language to turn my ideas into what I wanted. And I also appreciate my designer, Jane Dixon-Smith at JD Smith Design, who has just done an incredible job for years now. We've been working together for more than a decade, and she has always done an incredible job at channeling what she thinks I want. But in the last, 18 months, as I mentioned, pretty much every single book cover has included elements of images I have made on Midjourney, because at the end of the day, I know what's in my head. And then Jane turns it into a cover. So the latest one obviously being Blood Vintage, but even Writing the Shadow, which I mentioned earlier, I made that typewriter with the smoke on Midjourney. So yes, I love all these tools that we can now use to create beautiful products. In the last year, I have done 2 Kickstarters. So in October 2023, Writing the Shadow, Turn Your Inner Darkness into Words. There were 1,059 backers, and it made over £36,000, around $48,000. And in June 2024, this year, we had Spear of Destiny, which was my 13th arcane thriller, 313 backers, over £12,500, around $16,500. So although it's outside the timeline for this year, in November, I'm launching Blood Vintage, a folk horror novel on Kickstarter, which will have all the custom options, plus now BookVault do sprayed edges. And I have the proof copy here. I absolutely love it. You can have a look and watch a video of the proof copies on my Instagram at jfpennauthor, and you can sign up at jfpenn.com/Blood Vintage. That's going to run, I said November, but I'm launching it October 1st to 15th because I need to be able to print and ship those books before the Christmas post. So what is interesting is I'm only doing the hardback because the other formats have potentially got another way into the market. I can't really say any more on that. But in terms of my lessons learned, as much as I love reading in all the other formats, there is just something wonderful about having your words in a beautiful print edition. And I am super hooked on making these special hardback editions. And it's also worth noting because there has been this established wisdom, and I guess it's true, but as an author, you need to do things in the same genre in order to make money or make decent money. Now, it's worth noting that once I do Blood Vintage, my 4th Kickstarter, I will have 4 of them in 4 different genres. So the first one I did was Pilgrimage, travel memoir, then Writing the Shadow, which is writing craft and psychology, and then Spear of Destiny is a thriller, and then Blood Vintage is horror. Or it could be psychological thriller as well, with an edge of horror. So this is counter to everything we've learned about the catalogue sales platforms like Amazon. But hey, I love to create all over the map, and Kickstarter is a great place to do that. So yes, I guess my lesson learned here is I am just so happy. Like I've said before, I just feel like this enables me to create things I just haven't been able to create before. And that makes me super, super happy. I think we all want to hold our book in our hand and go, I made this. And it's much more fun when it's got foil and all kinds of other cool stuff on. So I guess my challenge for you here is, what is the best part of making physical things for you? And are there ways you could incorporate some of these more creative physical products into your process? I know Kickstarter is a challenge, and if you go back and listen, I did a lessons learned from my pilgrimage Kickstarter, and it was just terrifying. But now I'm on my 4th one. I am not terrified at all. I'm good to go. I love it. I think it's awesome. And so, as with anything, it's a challenge before you do it, and then you do it, and then you're like, yeah, what was I worried about? 5. My physical health is more important than ever, and I am now giving it more time. So I've always been pretty active, but I'll be 50 in 2025, so I'm determined to be in good shape for the decade ahead. Longevity in any career takes stamina, and when most of your job involves a desk, whether standing or sitting, you need to keep your body healthy. Creativity also benefits from exercise and movement, plus it's fun and makes you feel good, so mental health improves too. If you have any doubt, please read Built to Move by Kelly and Juliet Starrett. If you need to shock yourself into action, that will do it. Now, The Healthy Writer, co-written with Dr. Ewan Lawson, came out in 2018, and I still stand by that book. But since then, I have hit perimenopause, and a few things have changed since then. So after that book, I got into long-distance walking, and that led to my book Pilgrimage. But now I focus primarily on building strength and flexibility. So I've been powerlifting for several years now, and I did my first competition last weekend. My goal was to complete 3 legal lifts so I could get the participants medal, and I was thrilled to get 50 kilo squat, 40 kilo bench press, and 100 kilo deadlift. And you can compare that in pounds. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I'm pretty proud of that 100 kilo deadlift for sure. A total of 190 kilograms. Now, I did get a participant's medal, hooray! And I won my age and weight class, which is good, as I was the only one in it. Now, if you didn't know this already, women after menopause can lose up to 1% of muscle mass per year unless they work on strength training, which is why so many old women end up weak and break bones easily. Read Menopausing by Davina McCall if you are not up to date on menopause research, whatever age you are, and then go lift. Now, obviously, lifting's great for anyone, but a lot more men are lifting than women. So I'm lifting, which is fun, but I've also joined a calisthenics gym. And I'm now working on handstands and stuff on the rings and getting back into yoga and doing more flexibility and mobility as well as strength. So this different kind of movement is really challenging my body in new ways. And more than that, I am loving the classes. In fact, I just got back from one this morning and it's just hilarious. I think I'm playing more. I think maybe I didn't put this as a separate lesson, but I'm playing more creatively. I'm playing more physically. Goodness me, perhaps I'm learning to play in my old age. So I'm having fun. I'm meeting new people and I'm moving a lot more every day, plus still walking. I'm out of the house more, I'm off my screens more and working less. So as much as I love my creative and business life, it is mostly all in my head. But I am not a disembodied brain. I am not a machine or an AI. I am a human and I have a body and my brain is connected to this body. And my body needs to feel good and be functional in order for my brain to be happy. And so I am assuming you are a human too, and you have a body. So my question here is, does your body feel good and is it functional? What could you do to improve your physical health and increase your movement in a way that benefits your creativity and mental health? And I guess I put this as number 5, but it really should be number 1. And this has definitely changed for me in the last year. I am really putting my physical health much higher up on the list. It's the first thing I try and do every single day. So yeah, and it's really made a difference. I think I'm just definitely happier and having a fun time. And so I want that for other people too. And I know a lot is out of our control, but at the end of the day, we all have to sort of look at ourselves and go, right, how am I going to feel better in my body? And that will help your writing. Conclusion. So here we are again. After 13 years full-time and almost 16 years blogging and podcasting, I'm still writing, still publishing, still marketing, and still an author entrepreneur. So I did have a wobbly moment in this last year as the drama and stress in the author world took its toll. I wondered if I wanted to do this anymore. I still wanted to write books, but maybe just as a hobby and step away from the business. But when I looked into some other career paths, and I actually did, one day I might tell you what they are, I realised how grateful I am to be able to make a living with my writing and my creativity, and how much I want to keep doing it, even as I know I will have to keep pivoting to keep my business alive as the years go by. Thankfully, I love learning. So thanks to all of you for listening and for buying my books and backing my Kickstarters. Thanks to my patrons at patreon.com/thecreativepen and to my corporate podcast sponsors, as well as my affiliate partners. You make this possible. The challenges will inevitably change again in the next year, and I will keep sharing what I learn along the way. I hope you'll join me as I continue on the author journey, and I look forward to hearing about yours too. So I hope you found this interesting today and that it gave you some ideas or some inspiration for your author journey, whether you are just starting out or if you already have many years under your pen or laptop. Keys. You can find all my lessons learned from previous years at thecreativepen.com/timeline. As ever, I love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepen.com or on the YouTube channel, or message me on X at thecreativepen, or email me, joanna@thecreativepen.com, and send me pictures of where you're listening. On a similar theme, if you enjoyed this Lessons Learned, coming up next Monday, Sasha Black from the Rebel Author podcast will be talking about her lessons learned from 5 years full-time, and also about pivoting genres and starting a new pen name and all kinds of things. We also talk about money and mindset and health and all kinds of things because we're pretty good friends, so we get kind of honest. So in the meantime, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepen.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepen.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at thecreativepen, or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPenAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.